What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel today. This video originally was going to be a rogue closer look review, but I managed to pull Psylocke out of one frosty crystal over the weekend, which if you've not seen that video, definitely go check it out. I will have the link to the video in the description below. Pretty crazy opening. I never have that kind of luck, but was absolutely thrilled when I saw that I pulled Psylocke. So I had been waiting until Monday. I needed a few more mutant catalysts to be able to rank her up to rank 2, and then I basically had everything else I needed then to take her from 2 to 5. So what we'll do here, per usual, is I will rank her up real quick, and then we will jump into her abilities and finish up with some gameplay. So let's jump right into the rank up, and I will come right back in as soon as that's done. So when I spun out that Frosty Crystal on Saturday, I had absolutely no expectation of getting a new character, getting a 4-star, let alone getting one of the brand new characters to the game. That has never happened to me before. And to be honest, I think out of all the new mutants that have come to the game, Iceman, Archangel, Psylocke, she to me was the most intriguing. Not that the other two characters, she's better than them. I really don't know. I haven't done a comparison like that yet, but there is so much unknown for me about her character. I hadn't really seen anybody talk about her, so I didn't know if that meant she was bad, or if in a lot of cases people just don't understand her and they really don't know how to use her properly, so nobody talks about her. So for those reasons, when I pulled her, I was really, really excited. And she's a different character. There's not really anybody else that kind of has her play style. So I think what I'll do in this case is I'll point out a few things here on the ability page, and then most of the time I will probably spend over in the gameplay, just because it's a lot easier to explain this stuff when you actually see it. Just reading it is very confusing, and this is about the 4th time that I've recorded this part, just because I don't feel like I could really I don't feel like I could explain it clearly enough without actually visually seeing it. So there's a couple things that I want to point out. First is the signature ability, the psi feedback. It does a terrible job explaining it here. But when you have the enemy down at 0 power, which you'll see here in a minute, you can lock them there for an extended amount of time. She gets a 65% decrease to the defensive ability accuracy of the enemies. So this kind of makes her like a little mini Black Widow, Elektra, Crossbones character, in that she can work around things like evasion, armor up abilities, the thorn nodes, all of that stuff. That is as long as they are down at 0 bars of power. Also, passively from her awakened ability, the lower the enemy's power is, the higher her critical damage rating is. And she already gets some of that passively outside of her awakened ability, but those two things look like they stack. All that to say this, when the enemy has less power, the less they have, the more damage she is doing from her critical damage rate. Now, the critical damage rate is not an increase to the percentage chance for you to crit. It's an increase to the amount of damage that each crit does, so do keep those two things in mind. Now, for the remainder of this, go ahead and read through it all, read through the side charges, read through the special attack 1, 2, and 3, but then I'm going to move over now and do the rest of this closer look here in the actual gameplay. So what I want to focus on here in the first fight is how we gain our first side charge, and then how we use our S1 to set up getting the enemy down at 0 power. So the first thing we do is we need to push the enemy into a special, right there. Okay, every time the enemy gets a special, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, we gain a side charge. So now that we have our first side charge, the next thing we're looking to do is get our special 1, and then manipulate the enemy in such a way that they have less than 1 bar of power. The special attack 1 is going to drain 25% of max power, so that's a little bit less than 1 full bar of power. So you want to manipulate the specials from the enemy in such a way that when you bait out a special from them, they have as little power left as possible in their first bar, so that when you fire off your special 1, you can drain them all the way down to 0 power. So let me play it here. Okay, so we've got our special 1. Again, what we're going to be looking to do here now is bait out another special, and we got it right there. fire off our S1, and now he is power drained all the way down to 0. Now at this point, what you'll notice is as I attack him, I am gaining power like normal, but he is not receiving anything. And for every 5 hits now that I land on Iron Man, I'm getting another side charge. So that can come from my 5-hit combo right there. I got to stack 5. Or that can come from a special attack 1. So here we go, we're at 6 stacks. Fired off an S1, now we're at 7 stacks. And my plan was to go ahead and build up as many stacks as I could because I knew that he was going to regen, and I didn't have a way to negate that. But if I could build up a lot of stacks of these side charges, I can convert those all into damage and hopefully blow through that regen phase. So here we go. Let me pause it again. He's regenning. I've got 18 stacks. I'm going to go ahead and parry stun and then fire off a special, or excuse me, not a special, a heavy attack. The heavy attack converts each side charge into, I think it's like 859 damage each. So what you'll notice is the heavy attack at 18 stacks is 16,000. I mean, that's a pretty strong heavy attack. And if you can line everything up like that for characters that you know you're gonna need that burst of damage for, it really works out perfectly. Now, speaking of the heavy attack, I really wasn't sure if there was really any upper limit on the number of stacks that you could build up. So for this fight, I think I built up 50. I was just curious to see what 50 stacks translated into as far as damage. And I think I get 50 right here. Yep, and I think if I remember right, it's like right around 44,000 damage. Yep, 43,000 damage, plus the 3,000 from the actual heavy attack itself. So, I mean, in a normal fight, obviously you're not going to be able to build up that many stacks. But it was pretty cool to see some of the big numbers. Here, I think I put up 62 stacks. This was also Realm of Legends. Yeah, here it is, 63 stacks. Does 54,000 damage from a heavy attack. So really pretty cool. I mean, it was just all for fun, just kind of show you how much damage you can do with a heavy attack. Now, once you have your enemy stuck down at 0 power, if it's going to be an extended fight, you're going to get the most damage by spamming your S2. And there's a couple benefits that you get from that. When you use your S2, you actually gain 34% of your max power back, so that is more than 1 bar of power. So it is very easy to spam the S2 over and over again. When it does crit, it hits a lot harder than the S1 does, so for max damage, that's what I would be using. But then secondly, the more important thing that it does, I think, is it power locks for 6 seconds. But what that means is if you screw up during those 6 seconds and the enemy hits you, as long as that doesn't completely absorb all of your side charges and you still have 1 left, when you go back into attack, as long as the enemy, that power lock was on, that's going to keep everything in place, and you're going to continue to be able to hit them, and they're not going to gain any bars of power. So I think right here, yep, you see I got hit. I had 13 stacks when he hit me 5 times, 4 times actually, got me down to 9. But my power lock was in place, and I was able to go back in and continue to do damage and not give him any power. Now, this is my special attack 3. You'll notice I have 5 charges there. The reason for that is any charges past 5 you're wasting. Each one of those side charges on your special attack 3 drains 20% of power. So you can see there, with 5 charges, it completely drained him down to 0. It does convert those charges, the power burn into damage, but the numbers you saw there was 454 damage from the power burn, which is hardly anything. But you do get a 10-second power lock, and you do get a 5.5-second stun, which is really, really good from that special attack 3. So, all in all, she is a very, I think, specialized character. She is set up really well to deal with characters in Alliance Wars like Magic and Mordo on power gain nodes specifically. But do keep in mind, it does take a little bit of time to kind of set everything up. You're going to have to survive through at least 1, if not 2, baiting out specials from the enemy. But once that's done, like you can see here, I mean, it's easy. She is not gaining any power. Just with 3 stacks there, I still did over 3,000 damage with that heavy attack. Easy mode. Again, Mordo is the next fight that I've got set up, and I think she's even more set up to deal with Mordo. She's one of the few characters that I would say her heavy attack is very good and worth doing a lot. The animation of it, because it dashes so far forward, you have so much leeway as far as you don't have to be right up on the character in order to use it. You've got a space to be able to kind of time everything and not worry about being so close. Mordo, when you can see that timer ticking down and you know he's getting ready to go into that power gain, I would just run in and go ahead and use the heavy. It doesn't really matter where you're at. If you're in the vicinity of him, you're going to hit him with that heavy and it's going to negate that power gain. I'm not sure that you really need to even worry about getting him at 0 bars of power, because when he does get that power gain, it's going to push through all that anyway. She does have a couple of weak spots. She's not quite on the level of some of the other power drain characters like Vision, because she does take quite a bit of time to ramp up the power drain and power lock. But in addition, the special one all by itself only drains 25% of max power, so that's not even quite 1 bar of power. So a good example of that here in the Road to the Labyrinth, the all or nothing node. So he starts with 1 bar of power and he's not going to use a special until he gets to a special attack 3. So and shout out to whoever that was there, but I'm trying to do my best to gain 1 bar of power continually here to drain his special, but it just does not work out. The power drain in and of itself from the special one is not enough to really keep a character like this in check. You have to be able to play somebody who you can bait out specials for in order to set everything else up for Psylocke. One other character I ran into and had some problems with in testing was Dormammu. If he is duped, when you get hit, it removes one of your side charges, and that is considered you losing a buff. And every time you lose a buff with a duped Dormammu, he puts a D-gen on you. So do keep that in mind. We'll probably start to see more and more of him in Alliance Wars. So that probably is going to be an issue for Psylocke. Depending upon what path you are running in Alliance Wars would be whether or not I would recommend you using her. If you are consistently running up against Magic, Mordo, Hyperion, characters that have passively a power gain, or that you do not want to push into specials like Magic, she's going to be a really strong character for that. If you are on paths that you do not normally see characters like that, I think there are a lot better options. You really need characters for longer paths when you're doing a lot of fights that don't involve you needing to control power gain so much. You really need characters that can either they have a high block like Captain America, they have a good stun chance like a Hulk, or they've got a passive strong regen like X-23 and Wolverine. So really, I don't think she necessarily takes a spot of those characters, again, unless you are running against some of those specific nodes that I talked about. That also kind of carries over into my recommendation for Alliance questing as well. There are just so many more characters that are better than her when it comes to fighting, lots and lots of fights. She does not have a whole lot of armor rating in and of herself, nor does she have any way of regenning. So she just doesn't have a lot of longevity unless you are, like a god tier champ yourself and you never take damage. And you can always, keep the enemy power locked, and that's a different case scenario. But for most of us mere mortals, Psylocke probably falls in behind Rogue, X-23, Wolverine, and possibly even Beast in her own class for Alliance questing. I would say where Psylocke will shine is probably in more specialized events. For instance, Act 5, the last quest, that Burden of Might, where you have to consistently hit the enemy, or you've only got, you got 6 seconds there, and after that you start to degen. When you can consistently keep the enemy locked with no power, you don't have to worry about baiting out specials. You can stay aggressive, and that timer is a non-issue. So for instances like that, for upcoming chapters in Act 5, for other special events that have got, different unique nodes that are built around power gains, I think she's going to be a very strong character for use in that way. But only time will tell. We'll have to wait until we see more of Act 5 come out and wait for the next special event to hit. Ultimately, I think if you have a good understanding of how Psylocke works and how you should use her, I think she's a very strong character. If you don't know what you're doing, I would say leave her leave her alone. Don't bother taking her up if you're not going to take the time to figure out how to use her, because she's just going to be very frustrating for you. I think she's a strong character. Probably won't use her a whole lot in AQ and AW on a normal basis, but definitely one of those characters that I'm glad I've kind of got in my back pocket. I can see her being used, like I said, for special events and special nodes from time to time when they pop up. As always, I hope that this video, as it was designed to do, has given you a little bit more insight into the character. Hopefully has answered some questions for you, but if you still have questions, as always, leave those down in the comment section below. Follow me over on Twitter. You can ask me questions there as well. Alright, somebody go out and get 100 stacks of Psycharge and send me a screenshot. I want to see what the damage is. Alright, until the next video, guys, take care. Have a great day.